Welcome to Starbound. My name is Aaron, and I'll be your narrator today. And if you love human-made HFY stories, then you can check us out on Patreon now, where you'll find exclusive episodes that you can't see anywhere else. But in the meantime, let's get to today's first story. The negotiation chamber aboard Harmonious Intent was the kind of room designed to make you feel small. Finn O'Connell had been in plenty of those. Cold processing floors at 4 in the morning. Abattoirs in Cork and Limerick, where the foreman's office sat on a raised platform, specifically so he could look down on you. 2 years on Kerrigan's World, where the company ran every meeting standing up. He'd broken down his first beef carcass at 14 in his uncle's yard in Bandon, and hadn't once found a room more intimidating than the animal itself. He'd learned early that the architecture of intimidation was its own language, and the first step to not being intimidated was recognizing what the room was saying. This room was saying, "You are lesser." He'd been saying nothing back for 40 minutes. At the head of the long table, Ambassador Zarin of the Korith sat with the stillness of a species that had never needed to fidget. Tall and lean, with smooth gray skin the color of old ash, large liquid black eyes that held no pupil whatsoever, and long fingers that rested flat against the table, as if they'd been placed there deliberately. His uniform was spare, functional, and flawless. His voice, when he spoke, was a resonant calm baritone that arrived in the room fully formed and unhurried, carrying the unconscious authority of someone who had never once doubted they were the most important presence in any given space.
"The ecological significance of this world," Zarin said, "cannot be managed by a species still operating on instinct. Your colony's presence represents a fundamental misunderstanding of stewardship."
Governor Radford kept his voice level. 50-odd years, tired in the way that good administrators go tired, like a well-used tool.
"Our resource management record across 12 colony worlds suggests otherwise. Your record suggests efficiency," Zarin said. "Efficiency is not understanding."
Finn had been looking at Zarin the way he looked at a side of beef before he made the first cut. Not with hostility, with attention, taking inventory. The ambassador hadn't once looked directly at him in 40 minutes, which told Finn several useful things. Radford had introduced him at the start of the session, carefully, the way you introduce a trump card you intend to play. A resource management.
"As resource management is the central issue," he'd said, "I've brought our head of provisions, certified master butcher, 22 years experience. If anyone can speak to the colony's relationship with the natural resources of that world, it's Finn."
Zarin had looked at Finn the way a man looks at furniture. Finn had decided not to say anything until he had something worth saying. He was still waiting.
"Logic,"
Zarin said now, setting both long-fingered hands flat on the table with the deliberateness of a closing argument,
"has failed to move you. Perhaps a demonstration will change your perspective."
He looked toward the far wall. The wall changed. It had appeared solid, the same pale, featureless material as the rest of the chamber. Then the opacity drained from it in a slow tide, and it became a viewport into the bay beyond. And what was in the bay beyond killed every thought in the room dead. The creature was enormous, six-limbed, low-slung, and built the way things are built when survival has been doing the engineering for a few million years. Everything load-bearing. Its body was plated in thick overlapping armor the color of old slate, articulated at the joints, and it moved inside the crackling blue perimeter of its containment field with a restless energy that made the field look optimistic. Its head was disproportionately large, the jaws capable of geometries Finn didn't care to think about. The muffled vibration of its roar came through the deck plating rather than the air. The bay was emergency containment. Finn registered that without quite knowing why. The containment field was doing the real work. The viewport between them was an interior partition, not rated for anything the creature in that field looked capable of. He filed that away. Radford had gone very still beside him, the stillness of a man keeping his reaction under strict administrative control.
"This,"
Zarin said, with the quiet satisfaction of someone presenting a prepared argument,
"is the grave maw. The apex predator of the world you propose to manage. The embodiment of the primal chaos your species believes it can steward. We have mastered it. You have not encountered it."
He let the silence sit. Finn leaned forward in his chair. He wasn't listening to Zarin anymore. He was looking at the creature. The shoulders on it, the depth of the chest, the way the armor plates thinned at the joints, where movement mattered more than protection. He could see the muscle structure working beneath the plating as it moved, and something in the back of his mind that had been quiet for 40 minutes woke up without ceremony. His expression, had anyone been watching him rather than the monster, was not fear. It was the focused concentration of a master butcher mentally marking off the meat. Zarin's gaze moved from Gravemaw back to the humans with the satisfaction of a man who had made his argument and was waiting for the surrender. Radford said nothing. One of the human security guards had gone a shade of ashen that Zarin probably found gratifying. Finn was still looking at the creature. He tilted his head slightly, the way he did when he was estimating hanging weight. The silence stretched. Then, barely audible over the low vibration of the containment field, he murmured something. Zarin's head turned a fraction.
"I'm sorry."
The translator had flagged the words, rendered them as sounds rather than meanings, which meant whatever Finn had said didn't map to any concept in Corinth vocabulary. Zarin's expression registered this as beneath notice. Finn wasn't looking at him.
"The back straps,"
Finn said, slightly louder, his accent thickening the way it did when he was thinking hard about something.
"along either side of the spine. You're seeing them work as it moves. You see that? 3 feet, easy. Probably closer to 4.
Zarin turned to face him fully now. Finn leaned a little further forward, elbow on the table.
The shoulders on it as well. All prime cut. The muscle structure's almost bovine, which I wasn't expecting, given the plating. But that's the thing, isn't it? It's been carrying that armor its whole life. You'd be looking at some of the most worked muscle I've seen outside of a draft animal."
He paused, tilting his head.
"Oh, and the belly. See the muscle structure working there? That's pure flexibility. The thing needs to bend to move. The meat underneath will be tender, thin enough to cure. You could make a pancetta from that belly that would feed the colony for a month."
He glanced at the hindquarters.
"Oh, and that's before we get to the legs."
The room was very quiet. Zarin's voice, when it came, was still level. This, Finn had learned, was how the Korath expressed fury. Not volume, not heat, but a quality of stillness that was colder than either.
"You believe,"
Zarin said,
"that this is a subject for gastronomy." "Oh, I'm not doing anything,"
Finn said mildly.
"You showed it to me." "Your species," Zarin said, "will be taught respect."
His hand moved to the armrest. Finn sat back. He'd noticed the control panel when they'd first sat down, the way he noticed most things. Automatically. The same way he'd noted the viewport and the emergency containment bay and the specific weight distribution of the creature that suggested its center of gravity sat low and forward. He also noticed that the 2 Korath guards carried long-handled ornate weapons that didn't look like anything designed for close quarters. Specimen control, he thought. Reach tools. Something you'd use if you needed to move an animal without hurting it. Not for this. Not at this range, and not with the field gone. He thought about the viewport. He was still thinking about it when Zarin pressed the control. The containment field cut out with a sound like a held breath released. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. The grave maw stood in the bay, suddenly uncontained, and something changed in its posture. A shift in the shoulders, a lowering of the enormous head, as it registered the absence of the barrier it had been pressing against for however long it had been in that bay, and its breathing changed in a way Finn recognized from livestock before a charge. The Korath guards raised their weapons toward the viewport, intending to hurt it, to direct it the way Zarin had planned. The grave maw didn't wait to be directed. It moved. 6 limbs, and it barely seemed to use all of them. The burst was mostly in the hindquarters, a coiled release of everything that armor and muscle had been holding in, and it crossed the bay in less time than it took to process what was happening. The viewport didn't stop it. The first impact cracked the partition along its full height, a sound like a shot, and Radford flinched back hard. The second impact took the viewport out entirely. Safety material sprang inward in a cascade of fractured panels, cold air from the bay rolling in with it, and something animal and hot. Alarms began sounding. Both human security guards had their sidearms out. Finn hadn't seen them draw. He was already on his feet, which he also didn't remember deciding to do. The grave maw came through the gap at a crouch and straightened to its full height inside the negotiation chamber, and the room that had been designed to make you feel small suddenly felt inadequate. It roared. The sound was not muffled now. It came through the chest and the bones and the back of the teeth simultaneously. And it found Governor Radford, the most prominent figure in the room, upright and exposed, and the creature's enormous head dropped and swung toward him, and it charged. The energy bolts hit the grave maw's frontal plating and did nothing. Not nothing. They scattered, spread across the armor in brief flares of light and heat that the creature registered the way a man registers an insect, a momentary shift of attention before the charge continued. The human guards were firing and stepping back simultaneously, and neither activity was making any difference. The Korath guards hadn't fired at all. They'd raised their weapons toward the creature and then held, their specimen control tools useless at this range. Too close, too fast. An animal that had stopped being an asset the moment the field cut out and was now simply a problem no one in the room had the right tool for. Zarin had not moved from his chair. His hand was still on the armrest, still covering the control he had pressed with such deliberateness just a moment ago. Finn was the only person in the room not watching the grave maw. He was watching where it was going.
"Stop shooting the shoulder!"
The words came out the way instructions came out in a busy kitchen. Not loud, but carrying. A voice calibrated to cut through noise without effort.
"You're just bruising the meat."
The shooting stopped. It stopped because when a voice speaks with that quality of professional certainty, something in the human nervous system assumes it knows something you don't, and acts accordingly. Both guards had their weapons half lowered before they'd consciously decided to lower them. Radford had thrown himself sideways when the creature checked toward the guard's fire, and was now pressed against the far wall staring at Finn. Finn pointed. Not the way a soldier points at a target, the way a butcher points at a cut, with the first 2 fingers extended and the hand slightly turned. The gesture of a man indicating something specific to an apprentice who hasn't learned to see it yet.
"Behind the first forelimb," he said. "See where the plating separates for the joint? Right there, that seam. That's your thoracic inlet. Sever the arteries."
He paused a fraction of a second.
"One clean shot."
One of the guards found the seam. It wasn't visible as a gap. It was visible as a slightly different quality of shadow between 2 plates. A line where the armor had to give way to let the joint function. And you'd only see it if you spent years learning to read the structure of large bodies by what they needed to do, rather than what they looked like from the outside. She fired. The bolt went in at an angle Finn had indicated without quite indicating. The geometry of the shot arrived at through instinct and redirected through his pointing finger, and found the thoracic inlet just where the armor ended and the softer tissue began. The grave maw made a sound it hadn't made before, something lower than a roar, something that came from further down, and its front legs buckled first. the rear following in a slow collapse that took several seconds longer than the size of the creature suggested it should. It turned as it fell, almost graceful, and came to rest on its side across the width of the chamber. The alarms were still going. Nobody had turned them off. One of the Korth guards made a sound. Not words, just a sound, low and involuntary, the kind that comes before grief. In the silence under the alarms, nobody moved. Then, Finn did. He crossed the chamber without hurrying, without looking at Zarin, without looking at anyone. He crouched by the throat and found the jugular with 2 fingers, the way you find it in the dark after 10,000 bleedings. He had nothing to cut with. He stood up. He nudged the nearest leg with the toe of his boot, a thickly muscled haunch, easily 3 feet across at the widest point, and exhaled through his nose in pure frustration. He stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets, eyes moving. Then he turned to Radford.
"Governor, a terrible waste."
He said it the way a man says it about a piece of meat, which is exactly what he meant.
"The adrenaline will have soured the best cuts. There's nothing for that, it's in the blood. Still,"
he looked back at the carcass, assessing.
"them haunches are far enough from the wound. Loin's probably clean. If we can get it bled and hung in the next hour, we can salvage most of it."
He paused.
"I'll need my team. And a winch."
Radford stared at him. Finn was already thinking about the winch. The colony ate well that night. It was nothing ceremonial. No speeches, no formal occasions. The belly cuts had cured for 6 hours in brine in the ship's cold storage. Not long enough, strictly speaking, but nobody was complaining. Just the mess hall smelling of something rich and unfamiliar, and Finn at the pass with a cloth over one shoulder, checking the plates before they went out.
Hello, my all members, subscribers, followers. I feel that my channel is low altogether, and I have submitted some videos in English to change the motto of my channel. Please subscribe my channel, view my videos, and share in all of your friends on Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, every social media platform to send my video and view more videos. Viewer in my video, please help me to provide some time to spend with me. Thank you to all members who can subscribe my channel and support me some time. Please view more video and entertainment video. Please help me sometime to support my channel because I am a low middle class family. Please help me.